at standard form. Okay, just a warning, standard form is a bit of a longer lesson. I will do my best to trim this down to make the video as reasonably length as possible. Okay, so actually, this should not say point slope. Already typo right out of the bat. This should say standard form. All right, so standard form looks something like this. We have ax plus by equals c. Okay, a, b, and c all represent integers. All right, which just means any negative or positive whole number. All right. Another aspect about standard form is that a must be positive. Okay? I know this is a little bit confusing right now. It'll make more sense once we look at some examples. Okay? There is no fractions or no fraction in this form, unlike the other two forms. We need to use this form to find our x and y intercepts. This should be a y. Okay, so your x and y intercepts is what we are trying to find. This is where the line crosses the x and y axes. Okay, many of you will notice that standard form is super helpful when solving word problems. Okay, so I know this is kind of a lot to jot down. Make sure you pause the video if needed. All right, so example number 1. So we need to find the x and y intercepts of our equation, 5x minus 6y. Okay, so within our equation here, we have a equals 5, b equals negative 6, and then finally c equals 60. All right, so for our y-intercept, which is our first one here, remember, y-intercept is when we have a number and 0. So it is when y equals 0. So let's take our equation and plot it, and substitute in a 0 for y. So that gives us 5x minus 6 times 0 equals 60. From here, our goal is to solve for x. So that gives us 5x equals 60. Divide both sides by 5, gives us x equals a positive 12. So if we were to write our x-intercept as an ordered pair, we would have 12 and 0. Okay, let's follow the same process for our y-intercept. Remember, our y-intercept is when you have a 0 for x and a number for y. So let's substitute 0 in for x. This gives us 5 times 0 minus 6y equals 60. From here, we need to solve for y. Our 0 will cancel, giving us a negative 6y equals 60. Divide both sides by negative 6, and that leaves us with y equals negative 10. We can also write this as an ordered pair, which gives us 0 and negative 10. Okay? So, remember, our x-intercept is 12, 0. Our y-intercept is 0, negative 10. So let's go ahead and plot these points. So let's first start by plotting our x-intercept. So that would give us 12 on the x-axis, which would be a point about there. And then we have our y-intercept, which is negative 10 on the y-axis, which is a point about there. From here, when you have your x and y intercepts, that is all you need to be able to graph this line. So all you need to do is just connect the two lines, and there we go. That is how to graph using standard form. So honestly, it's pretty simple. All right, example number 2. Let's skip it for now. We'll come back to it at the start of class, but make sure to give it a try on your own. All right, going to standard form. So if we want to achieve standard form, our goal is to write it in the form ax plus by equals c. That's our typical standard form. So parentheses usually mean to distribute. Okay, number 2, fraction. Get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by the denominator. Okay, a very similar process to multiplying out our fractions when solving equations. If you multiply every term by the denominator of the fraction you're given, it actually undoes your fractions in a sense. Number 3, we can use addition or subtraction to quote unquote move the variable. Variables, and then let's add here to the left side. That way we can get both get both x and y on the left side of c. Okay, finally, just check and make sure that a, b, and c are integers or are positive whole numbers, positive or negative whole numbers, but a in particular needs to be positive. Okay, the last thing here, make sure that you have no fractions in your final answer. Okay, I know this is completely counterintuitive to point slope and slope intercept form, yet just make sure for this situation that that is the case. All right, so there really are 2 different ways that you can go about solving these. Okay, let's go ahead and move this over here for now. All right, so method number 1 is to distribute your fraction into your parentheses. So we can go ahead and distribute a negative 1/3. So if we were to do that, that would give me y minus 2 equals negative 1/3 times x, which is just negative 1/3 x, plus negative 1/3 times 6, that gives me 6 over 3, which is just a negative 2. Okay, from here, like we talked about above, I need to undo this fraction. So we need to multiply everything by our denominator, which in this case can be negative 3, just to get rid of our negative here. Okay, so let's go ahead, multiply everything by negative 3. So negative 3 times y gives me negative 3y. Negative 3 times negative 2 gives me positive 6 equals negative 3 times 1/3. That cancels out. So that just gives me x. Negative 3 times negative 2 gives me a positive 6. Okay, now that I have undone my fractions, now I need to move both of my variables to the left side. So in order to do that, I need to subtract my x to the other side. Okay, that is going to get me, here, let's go back up here. That will get me negative x minus 3y plus 6 equals 6. All right, so now I need to subtract 6 so that I only have variables on the left side. So that gives me negative x minus 3y equals 6 minus 6, which is just 0. Okay, so the final thing here is we cannot have a as a negative number. Right now, our a value, which is in front of our x, is negative 1. So in order to undo our negative, why don't we just go ahead and divide everything on both sides by a negative 1. By doing that, we essentially just flip the signs. So that gives me x, negative 1 times negative 3, gives me positive 3y equals 0. And right there is one way to solve for standard form. All right, that is solving for standard form using distribution as your first step. All right, the other way, and the way that you guys may find simpler, is to multiply out your fraction right away. So instead of distributing 1/3 inside our parentheses, we could go ahead and multiply everything on both sides by negative 3 right out of the gates. So distribute negative 3 to your left side. That gives us negative 3y plus 6 equals, all negative 3 does on this side is cancels out with your coefficient on your parentheses. So that just leaves you with x plus 6. From here, all of the steps stay the exact same. Okay, we are going to subtract x to our left side. That gives me negative x minus 3y plus 6 equals 6. Now we need to subtract our constant to the other side, leaving us with negative x minus 3y equals 0. And just like on the other side here, let's divide everything by negative 1 so that our a value is positive. So that leaves me with x plus 3y equals 0. All right? So really, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter which of these two methods you guys decide to go with. Both are perfectly effective methods of finding your same solution, or going from point slope to standard form. We can actually label this section as that. Point slope to standard. Okay? So the very last thing in our section 5.3 here, if I'm not mistaken, is this word problem. So due to a lack of time, and I would not like to rush through the word problem since it is super important, is I'm going to have you guys go ahead and copy this down on your own. Okay, have this word problem written. I know a lot of you like to skip out on writing word problems, but write this one out. Okay, at the start of class, we can go through this together, which should help clear up questions about standard form in general. All right, so copy this down for class, have it ready, and we will go over it at the start of class. Thanks for watching.